This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
People told me that they're busy, they have to catch a 6 a.m. flight, so I just want I'll be finished before then. And people are afraid to be in the line of the camera, but it's good for business. It's okay. It's good. First, we want to thank Abel for hosting tonight's event, even though it wasn't able to be in his house, but for organizing and orchestrating. We want to welcome Abel's father, Mr. Feldhammer, and we hope he has a very enjoyable time over here in Cedarhurst. And we wish him much nachas from his whole family. And we wish the whole family simchas and nachas, Ma'al Hashem kol mishas libchem l'toiva. Okay, so I want to speak a little bit about Hoshanas, and hopefully give our neshama a little ha'ara, a little illumination of the simcha of the Yom Tov of Sukkos. We know we scream out in Hoshanas this mysterious phrase, Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. Every day we say it at least 2 times. And the question is, what in the world does this mean? Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. Ani, you're asking, I should help myself. What does it even mean? Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. In fact, the Roikeach is one of the Balei Tosfos from Garmaiza, from worms. Roikeach was the master of the Soidos HaTorah. Roikeach writes, Yesh lechavein loimar yoiser bekavana ani v'hoi Hoshiana. You should put in a lot of emphasis and energy. And when you say the words ani v'hoi Hoshiana, you should say it with a lot of kavana. Ki hu ikar hatfila. The ikar part of Hoshanas is ani v'hoi Hoshiana. It's interesting. It's not the beginning of Hoshanas, Hoshana Lamancha Lakeinu. Most people, they get all excited. Hoshana, right? Lamancha Lakeinu. Hoshana Lamancha Bereinu. I don't think I ever heard anybody scream out, Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. Roikeach said it's a mistake. The Iker Hoshanas, Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. In fact, Roikeach writes in his commentary to the Siddur, that when you say Ani v'hoi Hoshiana, Lekach Soyakim B'kol Ram B'kavonas Halev Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. When you say those words, it should be B'tza'aka. You scream it out. And the question is, what do these words even mean? Why is this the Iker of Hoshanas? Why is this the main tefillah on Sukkos? In fact, on Shabbos, we know we don't walk around the bima with the Hoshanas, but we still say Hoshanas. One of the stanzas of the Hoshanas of Shabbos is we say, Kahoshata Yekev Machatzavecha Soivim Beranona. That means, Rebbe, when you saved the wine press of those who encircle Beranona with their greens, with the lulav and esrog, Roinanim Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. What do we say when we encircle the Mizbeach? The Iker Tefillah is Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. The question is, what exactly does this mean? What does it mean Ani v'hoi Hoshiana? And why is it the Iker Tefillah of the Hoshanas? It's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says that Hillel was the king of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah Daf Nun Gimel, Amru alav al Hillel Hazakein Kishaya Sameach B'Simchas Beis HaShoeva. When Hillel rejoiced at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, what did he say? Amar Kain. He said the following: Im ani kan, hakol kan. If I'm here, everyone's here. Now I know a lot of people that say that, right? What did Hillel mean? Im ani kan, hakol kan. I mean, that was his big avodah. That's like his. Here, you can imagine the madreg of Hillel Hazaken. You can imagine what kind of gehoivene kavanas Hillel Hazaken was having. And what did he say when he got there? He said, I don't need anybody else. Im ani kan, hakol kan. If I'm here, everybody's here. What in the world was Hillel Hazaken saying? If you look in the Mishnah Masechta Sukkah Daf Mem Hey, Mishnah brings down 2 opinions what you say in the Beis HaMikdash when you encircle the Mizbeach. One opinion is Ana Hashem Hoshiana. However, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. We pass on like Rabbi Yehuda. That's why in the Hoshanas, the Iker Tefillah is Ani v'hoi Hoshiana. What is this supposed to mean? What's the Tefillah? Why is this the Iker Tefillah? Why do you say it b'kol ram? Why do you say it b'tza'aka? So a few months ago we gave a shiur, some of you heard it, I know, about the 42-letter name of Hashem. Ana v'chayach gedul hasimcha. And somebody asked me, I think Donnie asked me, when you give a shiur on the 72-letter name of Hashem, right? You asked me that. So you have to be careful what you ask for. So, there's a Rashi in Masechta Sukkah. Rashi in Masechta Sukkah is Megala, a tremendous sight. Rashi says, If you look in Parshas Beshalach, by the Psukim, right before Kriyas Yamsuf, Rashi points out, and this is Rashi's Chiddush, there are 3 Psukim in a row that each have 72 letters. You have Perak Yudaled Pasuk Yotes, Vayisa Malach Elokim HaHolech L'fnei Machne Yisrael. Then you have Vayavoy, that pasuk also has 72 letters, and then you have Vayet. Kemat no other pasuk in Tanakh has 72 letters, and here you have 3 psukim in a row that have 72 letters. Says Rashi Masechta Sukkah. What's Ani v'Hoy Hoshiah? This is Rashi's second shot. Says Rashi, from these 3 psukim in Parshas Beshalach, it makes up the 72-letter name of Hashem in the following formula. There's 72 different names of Hashem. How do you get them? What's the formula? Formula is like this. Listen carefully. You take the first letter of the first pasuk, the last letter of the second pasuk, the first letter of the third pasuk. Mekubalim call it Yosher, Hafuch, v'Yosher. Straight, backward, and straight. And why that's the formula? Bezos Hashem. We should be together for many years. We'll get to that. But that's the formula. That's Rashi's Chiddush. The Chiddush is, the way you get 72 different names of Hashem, I'm not telling you any, this is Rashi. Rashi in Shas says, the first letter of the first pasuk, the last letter of the second pasuk, the first letter of the third pasuk. That makes up one name of Hashem. Then you take the second letter of the first pasuk, the second to last letter of the second pasuk, the second letter of the third pasuk. Then you take the third letter of the first, the third to last of the second, the third of the third, and so on and so forth. So I made a little chart for you. You have a number 9. If you want to know what they are, what are the 72 different names of Hashem that emanate from these 3 psukim, you have, let's take for example, the first one. Vayisa begins with a vav. First pasuk begins with a vav. The second pasuk ends with a hey. The third pasuk begins with a vav. What does that spell? V'hoy. Okay? The next name. Second letter is a yud. Second to last is a lamed. Second is a yud. Yud, lamed, yud. And through this formula you get 72 different names of Hashem. And Rashi says, from these 72 different names of Hashem, somehow you get the 72-letter name of Hashem. This is the Chiddush of Rashi. Nobody said it before Rashi. It's not brought down in any Gemara. The Zohar brings it down. But Rashi, L'chorah, did not see the Zohar. This is the Chiddush of Rashi. That if these 3 psukim, they each have 72 letters, take the first of the first, the last of the second, the first of the third. Okay? Says Rashi, V'hoy is name number 1. Okay? V'hoy is name number 1. Vayisa, the vav of Vayisa, the hey of Haloila, and the vav of Vayet. Says Rashi, name number 37 of Hashem is Ani. Name number 37 is Ani. So for instance, you take the 37th letter of the first pasuk, Aleph. You take the 37th to last letter of the second pasuk, Nun. You take the 37th letter of the third pasuk, Ani. Says Rashi, Ani v'hoy Hoshiah. It's a plea to Hashem. Ani is the name of Hashem. Which name? Name 37. V'hoy is the name of Hashem. Which name? Name number 1. That's the secret, says Rashi, of Ani v'hoy Hoshiah. It's name number 37 and name number 1. And Tosfos asks, very nice, there's 72 names. How do we come up with name number 37 and name number 1? I mean, you could have picked many names that we could have come up with. By the way, some of the names, monk, nothing to do with camp monk, but one of the names is, there's 72 different names of Hashem, and for some reason, according to Rashi, the tefillah of Rabbi Yehuda, Ani v'hoy, we're picking which names? Name number 37 and name number 1. Tosfos wants to know, where do we come up with these 2 names dafka? Why not number 2? Why not number 72? Very interesting. By the way, we're almost up to Bereshis. The Ramban writes in his Hakdama to Chumash, the beginning of Bereshis, Ramban writes, he says, look at number 11, Yesh biyadenu Kabbalah shel emes, we have a true tradition, Ki kol ha-Torah kula shemoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every word of the Torah are different names of Hashem. The Ramban says you could read the letters differently than the way they're affixed right now. So, for example, we have it Bereshis Bar Lekim. The Ramban says you could read it. Bereish Yispera Elokim. You could combine it in different permutations, different combinations. But all the Chumash are really different names of Hashem. And that's why, right, the Gemara says in Masechta Bracha is Birchas HaTorah. Birchas HaTorah is what? Midaraisa Midrabanan. Gemara says, Daf Chaf, in Masechta Brachas. Minayin lebirchas HaTorah min HaTorah, shenemar. No? Very good. What's your name? Magazine Kishem Hashem Ekra, Havu Gaidel Leilagina. Right? So what does the Maharsha say? Right? What's the makar for Birchas HaTorah? It says Kishem Hashem Ekra. When I read the name of Hashem, Havu Gaidel Leilagina, you have to say a bracha. What does the Torah have to do with the name of Hashem? So Maharsha says the Torah is Kulai Shemais of Shalak Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So whenever you're reading Psukim, and you're reading the name of Hashem, you have to say Birchas HaTorah. The Ramban says that when we have an idea, right, the Gemara says that before the Torah was given, the Torah was recorded in Shamayim, Eish Shechaira al Eish Levana, black fire on white fire. Yeah? What did it look like? Right? The Gemara says that in Shamayim, the Torah was Eish Shechaira al Eish Levana. What does that mean? How is the Torah written? You have the Torah the way it is today? It's not the way it is today. It was the Shemais of Shalak Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Before the different letters combined the way we have them today, in Shamayim, the Torah was Shemais of Shalak Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Says Ramban that we have a tradition from Rashi. He says all the way at the end of this piece, at the end of number 11, he says, "V'nidna l'Moshe Rabbeinu adar chila kriyas hamitzvah." It was given over the way we have it today, but Nimsar al peh, the Ramban says, is that Moshe knew exactly how to come up with how the different Shemos of Hashem emanate from the Psukim of the Torah. The Ramban says elsewhere, the Ramban wrote a famous drasha. Ramban's famous drasha, Toras Hashem Tamima. Ramban says, it's Noida Larabim. You want to know why I'm speaking about these? These are like major secrets. Ramban's not a major secret. Ramban writes, Davar Noida Larabim. It's well known. Ki mipsuke vayasa vayavai vayet. From these three psukim that are consecutively 72 letters, Yotzei Shem Shel Shivim Mishtayim Oisiyos. You have the 72-letter name of Hashem. And this is a 72-letter name of Hashem that Ramban says, that the Chasidei HaDoros, they used Lahamis Ulahachayos, Lintoish V'Lintois. They needed to bring life, they needed to vice versa. They needed to build, they needed to destroy. Everything that you hear that Gedolei Yisrael did throughout the generations with various Shemos were these three psukim. Moshe Rabbeinu was Kara the Yam with these three psukim. But again, we don't understand, of all the 72 different names of Hashem, why Dafka Ani? Why Dafka V'hai? Why Dafka name 37? Why Dafka name number 1? Okay. The Vilna Gaon writes, in the beginning of Shir HaShirim, a big yesod, that whenever you find anywhere the number 70, it's not 70. There are always two heads. Whenever you see 70, for example, Sanhedrin is how many? 70. But on top of the Sanhedrin, you have a Nasi and you have an Av Bezdin. You have how many Umay Sa'ilam? 70 Umay Sa'ilam. On top of them, Esav, Yishmael. That's why the Zvayar says, Vayichul HaShamayim, 35 words. Kiddush, turn off my phone. 35 words. Vayichul HaShamayim is 35 words. Kiddush is 35 words. Can I get the Shivim Umais? Tikkuna Zvayar adds, that's why you say Savri Maranan. That's can I get Esav and Yishmael. So whenever you have 70, you have two heads. The Gra says, for example, the Shivim Umais. For example, the Sanhedrin. For example, how many Panim La Torah? Shivim Panim La Torah. But at the head of the Shivim Panim La Torah, you have Anoichi and Layelach. Says the Vilna Gaon, there's another 70. There's 70 names of Hashem. And the two heads of the 70 names of Hashem are Ani, Bahai. Why is that? Because whenever you have a number 70, you could break it up into 35, 35. Ani is name number 37, and Bahai is name number 1. So if you have 72, 72 could be broken up into how many groups? 2, 36 and 36. Ani heads the second 36, 37 and on. Bahai heads the first 36. That's the secret of Ani Bahai. There are two names of Hashem. Out of the 72, they're the two heads of the two groups. Bahai heads group 1. Ani heads group 2. Ani is number 37. V'hai is number 1. Still, the problem is that why is it backwards? It should be what? V'hai. V'hai is name number 1. And then it should be Ani. Ani is name number 37. V'hai is name number 1. So why is it Ani V'hai? Why do we do it backward? Why do we do it back? By the way, the Rishonim write already that how did Moshe Rabbeinu split the Yam Suf? He said these two names, Ani V'hai. So Ani represents the second 36. V'hai represents the first 36. So what do you have? The Shemos of Hashem split in half. And Al Yidei, he split the two groups in half, he split the Yam. And that's why on Sukkos, we're Mispalel for Mayim, and we know which Shem of Hashem, which Shemos of Hashem activates, controls the Mayim more than any other Shemos. The Shemos that Moshe Rabbeinu used to split the Yam Suf. That's why we're focused on these two Shemos Dafka. But again, we don't understand why backwards. What's the inyan? What? It appears again. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. These are the two groups. Why backward? So the famous Tosfos Yomtov. Take a look at number 17. We'll make it brief. You're not used to, you're not used to me yet. Okay, we'll bring you in very slowly, right? Mm-hmm. No, the Tosfos Yomtov says in number 17. He's bothered by this kasha. Tosfos Yomtov, Masechta Sukkah, Perek Daled, Mishnah Tes. Says the Tosfos Yomtov. V'chasher nasa shtei marochos. When you make two groups, me'elu hashemos of these 72 names, yeh Hashem halamed zayin. Then the 37th name, harishon mimarocha hashniya, the first of the second group. So you have Ani is number 37, and V'hai is number 1. So Tosfos Yomtov is bothered all the way at the last line, number 17. V'hiktim shem Ani, shehu reishis marocha shniya. Why does it put Ani, which is the beginning of the second group? Kederech Ani rishon v'ani achron. There's a pasuk in Tanakh. Ani rishon, I'm first. V'ani achron, I'm last. So all the Mepharshim are bothered. Very nice. I'm first and I'm last, and therefore they say what he means is therefore last could be first. Well, what does that mean even? But that's what the Tosfos Yomtov says. Again, not completely satisfying why Ani comes before V'hai if Ani is named 37 and V'hai is named number 1. B'chlal, what's the connection of these 72 names and Befrat, Ani V'hai, to the Yom Tov of Sukkos? What do the 72 names of Hashem have to do with the Yom Tov of Sukkos? We do not invoke them any other time of the year. It's not like Pesach time, you eat your matzah, and all of a sudden you cry out, Ani V'hai Hoshiah. You don't do it on Purim, right before Megillah says that, Ani V'hai Hoshiah. You don't find by any tzara, chazal, or masake, and you should cry out, Ani V'hai. Why dafka by Sukkos, when you're encircling the Mizbeach, all of a sudden, Ani V'hai Hoshiah? Megal Amukos points out, Ani, gematria, what? 61. Very good. Accountants. Ani, 61. And V'hai? 17. V'hai is 17. A total of 78. Megal Amukos says, when Moshe Rabbeinu taught these Shemos to the Sanhedrin, he gathered 78 Chachamim. Okay. What's that supposed to mean? Then the Megal Amukos says, these 72 names are Chesed. Now, what's the gematria of Chesed? You need to get like some kind of calculator, gematria calculator. 72. Chesed is 72.
He's assuming. Right?
That's good. That's part of the game. That's part of it.
Next answer, 72.
72. The 72 Shemos are Chesed. By the way, okay. But what does the inyan of the 72 Shemos have to do with the Yom Tov of Sukkot? The Radvaz of David ben Zimra, Radvaz was the Rebbe of the Rizal. The Radvaz writes in a tshuva about the inyan of the Nanuim, right? People are very into Nanuim, they get very excited about it, they get very into it. By the way, I'll tell you halacha, that if you have a specific minhag otherwise, fine. But I'll tell you what the Mishnah Berurah says about the Nanuim. Mishnah Berurah says, when you do nanuim, you do not move. You don't turn around. You go, let's say, you just shake the lulav in the direction that the lulav needs to go. You do not turn to the right. You do not turn to the left. You do not turn backwards. The Mishnah Berurah says, you stay in your place. He doesn't even bring down another opinion. If you know you have a different minhag, gesund to hate. If you don't have a minhag, this is halacha. That's just a side point. A total number of nanuim you make on Hallel. So you're going to shake nanuim by, you start by Hodu Hashem Kitayv. At least one time, right? Then you have Ana Hashem 2 times. And then you have again Nachamal Hodu Hashem Kitayv. Every time you shake, by the way, Mishnah Berurah says when you're doing nanuim,
3 times.
3 times. While you're doing it, you shake. You bring it back to yourself. It should come mamish ad hachazon. It should come up to your chest, not like that, like this. It should come all the way. The Mishnah Berurah says ad hachazon. Okay. So you have 3 times. I do Nusach Ashkenaz. That might have to switch. But 3 times to the Mizrach, 3 times to the right, 3 times back, 3 times to the left, up and down. A total of how many times? 18 times. Right? 3 times 6. That you know? 3 times 6. 18. Right? Even Nusach Sfard, they do 18. Just different directions. 18, at least how many times are you doing Nanuim? 4 times. Total of? 72. Rabbi says, Nanuim has to be minimum Ayin Beis Pamim. The inyan of Nanuim is Keneged the Shem Ayin Beis. The Radbaz was the Rebbe of the Arizal. Radbaz, Rebbe Arizal, Rebbe Lashita Mekubetzes. Radbaz, he became the Rav in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. He was a Rav there for 40 years. He wrote more than 2,500 shuvas. Radbaz writes, the side of Nanuim is 72, the Shem Ayin Beis. Very interesting. Then the Radbaz says another chiddush. We said the gematria of Ani V'Hoi is what? 78. Right, Ani is 61. V'Hoi is 17. Yeah, but grammatically, Ani V'Hoi. So the Vav is just shimushis, it's just and. So you don't have to count the Vav. It's Ani, which is 61, and Hoi, which is 11. How much? 72. So this is a riot to the Gra, that every 70 has 2 heads, and the heads are koila, whatever is in them. Ani and Hoi, which is a gematria 72, is koila within them, all 72 letter names of Hashem. Right? You got it? All 72 letter names of Hashem. What do the 72 letter names of Hashem have to do with Sukkos? Rekeach again. Rekeach had a tradition, going back to the Tanoim, of the exact number of words in every inyan in the Chumash, every inyan in the Siddur. The Rekeach writes a davar nifla. If you count the number of words in the Chumash that are written about the carbon on the first day of Sukkos in Parshas Pinchas, look at number 21. You count up all the words of the karbanos of the first day of Sukkot. V'hikravtem oila isherech nichayach l'Hashem u'minchasam series mechad chatos, says Rekeach. How many words about the carbon on the first day of Sukkot? 72 words. Again, you see, there's some kind of major connection between the 72 letter name of Hashem and the Yom Tov of Sukkot. The Iker Tefillah on Sukkot is Ani V'Hoi. Ani V'Hoi gematria 72. The Iker Nanuim is minimum 72 times. The number of words in the parasha that speak about the Karbanos on Sukkot is 72. So the question is, what is it? What's the connection between the 72 letter name of Hashem and the Yom Tov of Sukkot? And again, why are the 2 names out of order? In Yana D'Yayma, what do you do when it rains? So Mishnah says, when it rains, you got to go inside. When do you go inside? Misha Tisrach HaMikvah, when the food gets ruined. Yeah, when the soup gets ruined. The Mishnah says, Mashal Ma Davar Daima. Mishnah number 23, it's a Mishnah on Sukkah Chav Chesam Beis. What is this a mashal to? Le'eved Sheba Limzoig Kois L'Rabbi. It's like a servant who comes to pour a cup to his master. The shafach le'kiten al panav, and the master spills it back in his face. No thanks, I don't want it. Get out of here. Get lost. Go fly a kite. Go jump in the lake. And all those types of lashonos. Get out of here. That's what rain is. Rain is, you come to give a cup to your master, and the master spills it on your face. So the Vilna Gaon wants to know, what's the analogy between rain on Sukkos and bringing a cup to your master, and the master is spilling it on your face? Because we know in the olden days, what kind of cup did you bring to your master? You're not bringing water, you're not bringing fresca, you're not bringing soda, you're bringing wine. And limzoig, what's limzoig? Limzoig is you want to dilute the wine, right? You want to make it more tolerable, more drinkable. So how you moizeg yayin? You add water to the yayin. So the Vilna Gaon says like this. We know we have a Yom Tov, we have Rosh Hashanah. We have a Yom Kippur. These are what? These are Yemei Din. These are our days of strict judgment. Yemei Hadin, Yomim Nairam. But we also have a Yom Tov of Sukkos. The purpose of Sukkos is to be mamtik the din, to sweeten the din, to give a more favorable outlook to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It softens the din. While in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Rebbeinu Shalom has a certain, can we say, judgmental take, Sukkos is Yemei Ahava, Yemei Chesed, Yemei Rachamim. Sukkos comes to be mamtik the dinim. So you come to bring wine to your master. Wine, yayin, represents what? Yayin represents din. And the master, and what are you trying to pour into the wine? You're trying to pour in water. You're trying to sweeten it. You're trying to be moizig it. And the master says, I don't want the water. I'm going to deal with only yayin, strict din. The analogy of an Eved who comes to bring wine to the master, and the Eved wants to pour water into the master. The master says, no, I don't want the water. I only want the wine. That represents a master who only wants midas hadin. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a Yom Kippur. These are Yemei Hadin. We have a sukkah. The purpose of the sukkah is to be mamtik to din. It's to show chesed. It's to have a more favorable outlook. If the Rebbeinu Shalom rejects the sukkah, the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying what? Only midas hadin. I'm not going to be mamtik the din. I'm not going to give you the favorable outlook. So you see from this analogy that if the analogy is that just like a master who asks for some water, and the purpose of the water is to sweeten the wine, the purpose of Sukkos is to sweeten the Yom Aram. And without a Sukkos, you're left with only midas hadin. Just like without the water, you're left with hard wine, bitter wine, sour wine. So the purpose of Sukkos is for midas hachesed. It's to mamtik the dinim, to sweeten the dinim. Now Arizal writes, it's quoted in many places. There's a pasuk in Shiur Hashirim, Smoiloi tachas l'roishi v'yiminoi techabekeni. Right? His left hand is under my head, and his right hand embraces me. We know the left side is what? Midas hadin. The right side is midas harachamim. Says the Arizal writes in many places that the left side represents Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the midas hadin, Yom Noiran. Smoiloi tachas l'roishi. That's the left hand of Hashem. The right side is midas hachesed. V'yiminoi techabekeni. When does Rebbeinu Shalom kaviyachal give us a hug? The sukkah is a hug. It's tzila de mehemanusa. It's the hug of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Right? Shlomo Zalman Auerbach writes, if you give someone a hug, right, you have one arm, one part of the arm, second part of the arm, and tefach. That's a sukkah. 2 defanais and a tefach. Right? What's a sukkah? Sukkah, you need a minimum 2 walls and a little bit. The sukkah is kiviyachal v'minoi techabekeni. It's a hug from the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's the upper part of the arm, the lower part of the arm, and the hand. It's midas hachesed. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is midas hadin. Sukkos is to be mamtik the dinim. All the din that we experience on the Yom Naram, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, you know what? We'll take a different approach now. These will be days of v'minoi techabekeni. 1 doifen, 2nd doifen, tefach. Purpose of Sukkos is to be mamtik the dinim. That's the connection between the Shem, Ayin Beis, and the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Ayin Beis in Galamukoi says is Gematria Chesed. The 72-letter name of Hashem is the name that's Mashpia Chesed on Klal Yisrael. That's why all of the avodah of the Yom Tov of Sukkos, whether it's the Nanuim, whether it's the Karbanos, whether it's the Hoshanas, is focused on the chesed of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the shem ayin beis. Okay, that's the first part. Beyond that, the famous kasha, the Sukkos keneged what? Anani HaKavod. To commemorate the miracle of Anani HaKavod. Kasha is there are many, many miracles that we had in Mitzrayim. We had the miracle of the mun. We had the miracle of the be'er. So why of all the nisim do we commemorate the miracle of Anani HaKavod? If anything, you could say, Anani HaKavod, it wasn't absolutely necessary. The mun is necessary. You can't live without food. The be'er is necessary. You can't live without water. But the Anani HaKavod, it's a luxury. Why of all the things that we commemorate, do we commemorate the one thing we don't really need? Chida writes, very simple. Because man, Rebbeinu Shalom had to give us. Midas Hadin dictates that Rebbeinu Shalom created us, He has to give us food. And Midas Hadin dictates that Rebbeinu Shalom created us, He has to give us a bear. But nobody said Rebbeinu Shalom has to give us Anani HaKavod. That's pure Midas HaChesed. How do you say Anan B'Lashon HaKodesh? Av, Ayin, Beis, 72. The Anani HaKavod, the Av He'onan. It's Midas, pure Midas HaChesed. To be mamtik, to sweeten the din of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So now I'm going to tell you, if you just came here tonight to hear this, it was worth having a whole Yom Tov just to hear the following. We know Shabbos morning, most people are here by this time. There's a piyut that we say right after Baruch Hu, Kel Adain, right? A lot of good nagunim for Kel Adain. The Avudraham writes that if you look at Kel Adain, if you look at the stanzas of Kel Adain, the first line, look at number 29. First line, Kel Adain al kol hamasim, Avudraham says, has 5 words. The second line, Baruch hu mevayrach bikon shama, 5 words. 5 and 5, 10. So in the first 2 lines, you have 10 words. Avudraham writes, Rishon. Then, from here on, every line has 4 words. Yeah, that's 8. Another 8. Another 8. And if you go all the way down to the end of Kel Adain, how many? Okay, you're catching on. If you get up to Shevach Noisimloi, you have 72 words. Avudraham writes. And after Rav Hiskin says Rana, from Shevach until the end, you have 12. So this is the formula of Kel Adain. You have 10 words, you have 72 words, you have 12 words. 10, 72, 12. Avudraham says like this. The 10 words are Keneged Aser Sadibros. Aser Sadibros were given to the Kayach of the Shem Ayin Beis, and they were given to the 12 Shvatim. That's how the Avudraham writes. If you look in the Siddur of the Arizal, which we're not going to do, because it's impossible to read, but if you look in the Siddur of Reb Shalom Sharabi, he has this formula. You have the first 10 words, and at the end, the last 12, and then he counts the 72 words, yeah? For each of the 72 words, he ascribes a different one of the 72 names of Hashem in order. So, for instance, we already know that V'hai is name number 1, and Ani is name number 37. So, in the exact order, says of Shalom Sharabi, and the Arizal says the same thing, Gadla is V'hai, V'tuva is Yud Lamed Yud, Male is Samach Yud Tes, Ayin Lamed, right? And you have all 72 in the exact order. If you look on the word Lihiyos, Lihiyos Moshe Mekarev Teva, what's on top of the word Lihiyos? Ani. What's on top of the word Semechim? V'hai. But not the V'hai, which is the first one, V'hai, the 47th one. There are 2 V'hais. On top of the words in Kel Adain, Lihiyos Semechim, you have Ani V'hai. Says the Vilna Gaon, and this Vilna Gaon is not printed anywhere. Listen to this. There's a Rishon called the Baal HaItor. Baal HaItor was one of the early Rishonim. Chida writes, we have a Masar about the Baal HaItor, that anyone who republishes the Baal HaItor will die young. and nobody dared republish it until about 10 years ago. The Chidah says this about two people. He says this about Rabbeinu Yerucham, and he says about the Baal Itor. Nobody can republish it. The way it's printed, the way it's typeset, you cannot change it. So the Talmud Chacham Eretz Yisrael came to Rabbi Yosef, and he says, Ravadia, it's very hard for people to read the Baal Itor, maybe I'll retypeset it. Rabbi said, of course, you're mechuyev to. How about this Torah? He said, what about the tradition of the Chidah? You can read. The Chidah writes in the Shem HaGdolim, anyone who retypesets those two works, daya. Ravadia said the Chidah doesn't say that he knows for sure. Chidah says he heard from Zakenim, and Ravadia said, Chidah heard from people, those people were wrong. So the person said, yeah, but I'm afraid the Chidah writes it. Ravadia said, on my shoulders. So the guy started working on the Baal Itor, or Rabbeinu Yerucham first. After every 10 pages, another one of his kids were hospitalized. So he comes to Rabbi Vadia, he says, Rabbi Vadia, you sure I should do this? So Rabbi Vadia said, are you scared? Rebbe, if you tell me to do it, I won't be scared. On my shoulders. He continued, everybody was fine, and he published it, and now it's available to the public. But anyway, there's a commentary in the Baal Itor called Pesach Hadvir. The Pesach Hadvir says he heard from the Vilna Gaon the following. He said the following. I'm not into spooky stories. Pesach Hadvir says, I heard from the Vilna Gaon that what's the secret of Ani V'Hai? That the 72 letter names of Hashem correspond to the 72 words in Kel Adain from Godloi V'Tuvai Malei Olam until Shevach Noisnim Lai. And over the word Lihiyais is Ani. And over the word Semechim is V'Hai. And the Iker mitzvah of Sukkos is what? Lihiyais Semechim. And which Shemais of the Rebbeinu Shalom give are the Makar Simcha, are the source of Simcha for the Neshama? Ani V'Hai. Ani is Lihiyais, V'Hai is Smechim. And that is why the Iker Tefillah on Sukkos is Ani V'Hai Hoshiah. We're Mispalel to Rebbeinu Shalom, that through the Kach of these two Shemos, which are the head of all the Shemos of Hashem, which are the Makar of all Simcha, of Lihiyais, Smechim, we're Mispalel Rebbeinu Shalom should engender in our hearts enough Simcha, Ushaftem Mayin B'Sasam Yimayne Yeshua, to last us throughout the year. And of course, we know the Iker Simcha is Ein Simcha Ella Torah. And at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, we draw the water, and we cry out Ani V'Hai Hoshiah, and we say to our neshama that the more we're shoyeh from Torah, the more our neshamas will be sameach the whole year. And the Vilna Gaon says the following. There's a Ramah. Ramah says in Shulchan Aruch, halacha nobody understands, that an Ovel cannot go around the bima for Hoshanas. The Ramah says, Siman Tafresh Samach, Mishe'er la'evel evel b'chag, Einoi makif. And everybody wonders, why not? Says Vilna Gaon, very, very pashut. Because the Yikr Tefillah of the Hakafos is Ani V'Hai Hoshiah. And Ani V'Hai is Lihiyais Smechem. And the Ovel, unfortunately, cannot partake of that. And therefore, Mirz Hashem, in the future, he'll be able to say this Tefillah in the full sense, Ani V'Hai Hoshiah. But in the meantime, we're all Zoicha to be Tzoyek, to be Mispalel, Ani V'Hai Hoshiah, which is the Tefillah of Lihiyais Smechem. Rebbeinu Shalom should give us all a year of Simcha together, Yeshuas v'Nachamais for all of Klal Yisrael. V'vi'askal tzedek m'her v'yameinu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.